Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh to some of y'all, and peace out to the rest of you. Hit the share button because the message is more important than the messenger. Here's the deal, y'all. Shout out to Chantel Simone 5 days ago. She did a live stream entitled "Most Black Women Suck at Dating, Expecting the Worst from Men." And she talks about how when the States end backyard, a lot of sisters grow up hearing from their mothers and women older than themselves that men are dogs, want one thing, and are going to bounce as soon as they get it. And that that's what's pushed down their throats. And what I want to point out is that Chantel Simone was right about that. And that does start this pattern. What I'm going to do in this one is further explain how much worse that pattern really is and how much worse it's gotten. That's where it starts. On my Facebook page, I posted an image of a father posing with his young daughter. Dr. T. Hassan Johnson, shout out to the doctor. I think the T stands for Tiger, by the way. Shared the same image on one of his live streams early on. I think it's the last live stream or the second to last one about black men being fed up. It's a man that's not too big or too small, very groomed and neat looking, and who fits the description of what a decade ago would have been select. Posing with his daughter, a cute little gem. Underneath that photograph is a caption of somebody replying to it on Twitter saying he looks like it's worse than I can even say. Looks like someone that would do unspeakable things to kids, protect our children. She doesn't know him. And she said this, you know who does know him? Jesse Veal III says he went to school with this man. That man's definitely not that kind of person. I hope that man and that lady's name is there. So I hope that that man goes and sues the F out of her for that and wins buckets. I hope she has to fund the little girl's college education and don't get no kind of thank you for it either. Because you see, now, when I was coming up, I expected sisters to say this about me. Ambiguous looking guy. I wore glasses for a few years. Most of us had acne, but I wasn't a negative stereotype at all. So I get it to a certain extent. Problem was that it got worse as time went on. One year it was me. Next year was, I looked like I wouldn't hit back. And then next year I looked like somebody that's a little bit worse than that. And I'm associated with some slightly worse negative behaviors. And the guys from my neighborhood that are a bit more normal looking for our population look like they wouldn't fight back. And then it was, before you knew it, we looked like dudes could do to us what they wanted to do to women. Got that bad. Now, when I got to college, I noticed something. In college, that was when I noticed that dudes weren't saying these things. I also noticed that even in college, where the ladies were supposed to be better educated, the sisters were not. I posed once, like I said, I posed one time for I won't say what it was, but there was nothing 9AY about it. So guys posed, I think it was for a magazine. We were just wearing men's clothes. Then one of my homeboys came to me and said, "Yo, Black, man, them ladies talking about you in that magazine." And I said, "Oh, okay, what they saying?" Man, this one lady said, "Yeah, he looks kind of 9AY." And I was like, dang, How the hell did that happen? Now, granted, I had my hair long, but several guys had that. That was normal at the time. It was no longer associated with being 9AY. So that wasn't it. Now, I was somewhat desensitized, a little bit desensitized by this point. At that time, I never thought that black men who were select in the eyes of women would get the same treatment, and now I'm seeing that. Now it's beyond just what happened with this gentleman in the photograph. I'm using him as an example because there's a visual example of that. But there's a whole lot that's going on in between, and I've seen the steady progression of it. Jay Cash has talked about this. African-American women feel perfectly comfortable taking a glance at a black man and associating all sorts of negative behaviors with this man based on appearance. Gentlemen, you cannot build families with women who come from a culture who think that's okay. Every African-American woman obviously is not going to think that's okay. Many won't, but the culture is still that way. Why? Because the ones who don't think it's okay and know it's wrong are silenced. That means there's a cultural framework against their correct stance. You see, gentlemen? Sucks. And it's not your fault. So you see, gentlemen, there's nothing you can do when it gets this far. When I tell you that it's already gone too far for us to be able to sit up and practice some sort of race loyalty and national race loyalty at that, don't just keep it black, but keep it specifically black American. And, UK is okay as well because they're just as ratchet and unbearable, difficult to handle. That's fine too. Black Canadian, that's okay as well. Bahamian, let's see how they act. Okay, they put you in your place. Yeah, that's fine too, because she's not going to be nice to you. You see? You can't win in a situation like that. And we got to be honest, the pattern is showing, what I'm seeing is a pattern in which it is the entire black diaspora that is Anglophone that suffers from this. Now, I'm not sure about how bad it is in the Francophone diaspora. I don't know how bad they are in Martinique, Haiti, and French Guyana. I don't know how bad it gets. I know that it is bad in Jamaica, Trinidad, Guyana, the Bahamas, Barbados, Belize. Oh, I know it sucks there. It's absolutely terrible. You ain't got to tell me, because enough from these areas have already told me. Even in Suriname, which is not primarily Anglophone, it's bad. I get it. So I sit up and I look and I say, man, shuck this fit. You want to be race loyal, and to a certain extent I can understand at times, but they're not allowing that. You want to practice race loyalty, you not only have to step out of the US to do it, you have to step out of the Anglophone Americas to do it. You got to go back to you got to go to either Latin America or go back to the continent. Because that's how far you got to go to escape this whole notion that it's okay for them to look at you and say you look like you, and then they have to fill in the blank with something negative. What does a guy who can't fight looks like? What does a man who's dangerous to kids look like? What do these guys look like? I don't know. Seems to me that they just look like someone a sister's not attracted to. And the thing is, if you're one of those guys that sisters aren't attracted, now apparently even if they are attracted to the way you look, but somewhere down the line you seem to have found success with some lady, evidenced by the presence of offspring, they seem to get so angry that they will sit up here and level an accusation against you. And you're like, what the F did I do? How did this happen? How did this come about? See, I was told at a particular job that I was the kind of guy that would hit women. Some other women said, oh no, he's the kind of guy that women will hit. It just depends on whichever one they thought was the weakest at the time. This is at a particular job in Atlanta, early 2000s. I think what saved me was that there was a guy at the job that actually was a goofball. He had buck teeth and he was a goofball. Hunched over a lot, had a nervous laugh about everything. He really struck out with women. And he would kiss up to whoever was above him at work. So he met stereotypical behaviors. And I think that's probably what kept it from getting worse for me, because these ladies were looking to blame guys for something. And one thing was that one of the reasons that they did not outright blame him enough, for anything bad enough to get him thrown out, was because they liked keeping him around so that they could dish out some of their toxicity on him. The reaction that he provoked in them, they wanted to have against some guy anyway. Hell, our boss went and said to him that he was inferior to a strong woman. That's the sentence she used against him. I didn't actually behave in these manners. It's not my way. Some of them thought that I looked like that. And they could not get past the fact that what they thought I looked like, I didn't behave as. They could not. I remember one of them, I saw her years later after I wasn't working there anymore. And by that time I was married and had my daughter. My daughter and I were in a Jamaican restaurant. She happened to walk in, she saw us. Then when she looked over, saw me, I nodded my head at her. I didn't go out of the way to speak to her or ignore her. I just nodded my head, gave a polite wave, looked back at my daughter. She came to the table and said, "Are you black?" I don't mean, am I black? I mean, in my black mind. I said, yeah, we worked together at that call center. And then she looked at the girl and she said, "Is she your daughter?" And I said, "Yeah." And I held my hand up to show that I'd gotten married. And I said, "Yeah, she is." And I turned to my daughter and I told her to say hello. And she said hello, and my former colleague talked about how sweet she was and everything else. And she said, "I never thought you'd have kids." And I said to her, "I got two. I have a son as well, older than her." But you're not alone. A lot of people never thought I'd have kids. And I decided to go ahead and tell her. I actually said to her, there's a reason that there are always people. We're not worried about going extinct. And sometimes I'm somebody's type. And they can admit it. I told her there's someone up here that works behind that counter there. Wanted to know why I didn't marry somebody from her country. And that's her way of showing some kind of interest, I guess. It happens. It's not that far-fetched. The difference was that the lady behind the counter wasn't from Jamaica, but she was actually from the continent. There was no shame in her being interested in a guy like me. It's just I was married and I was taken, that's all. For the former colleague, although we actually were polite and got along well, for her, there was a shame in being interested in a guy like me. And she had been at one point. and she lost it. Some other ladies told her he looks like the kind that, and I don't even know what all they said. So that being said, gentlemen, I just wanted to point out to you that you're not the only ones going through this. You know, a lot of you have heard someone say this about you, or maybe someone else, and you don't know how common it is. Gentlemen, that is pretty widespread. And it's just getting worse. And that's why we're now at a point where a man that was select a few years ago now looks like one of the lowest of creatures, dangerous to kids. Just looking at him, taking a normal photograph with his daughter. That's how bad he looks. That woman that wrote that is not the only one to think that way about black men in general. She's the one that wrote it. I've heard stuff like this so much, and I've heard it get worse, that I can see where this fits in the sequence. I'm not okay with it. I just know it was coming. It's probably going to get worse. I wanted you gentlemen to know, though, what Chantel Simone said was right. Yes, sisters in the Anglophone Americas are trained to assume the worst about us, but I also wanted you all to know that it's even worse. The worst that you've heard beyond that, you're not the only one that's heard it. It's common. I wish I was wrong about it. Thank you for listening. Black heart, black mind, blackout, assalamu alaikum, and black heterosexual non-select male power, because they don't like it in black patriarchy until extinction or judgment day.